Welcome to the Edinburgh Fringe. First, there was bebop, and after that, a kind of blue. Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is Edinburgh Calling. It's a Wednesday, quite a few shows going dark, but with over 3,000 on the books, there's lots to choose from on every single day of the Fringe. Yeah, let's just pull that down here. Ewan, Spence here as always. And it's been another, well, the weather's been kind of muggy. There's a little bit of rain in the air, but not actually falling just yet. There's bright sunshine. Edinburgh is just teasing us with the weather. I mean, look, the theatre spaces are always cramped. There's always air conditioning running between shows to try and keep it down. So the temperature is always a little bit higher than outside. But with the muggy weather that we're having, it just feels the same all over. It feels like you're in a theatre, you're in a performance space, you're in a stand-up, you're in a dance studio, wherever you are in Edinburgh, inside and out. And really that just kind of typifies the Fringe as a whole. Wherever you turn, somebody is putting on a show. How to choose from all of them, it's almost impossible, but we do like to bring you as much of a flavour of the Fringe as we can as possible here on the podcast. And if you have a listen to the different types of shows and genres and everything that we're highlighting here, then you'll just get an idea of the breadth of choice that we have at Edinburgh. Okay, so for today's show, we're going to welcome in accomplished jazz trumpeter Jay Phelps. He's making his debut at the Fringe this year with a show called Miles, a look back on the life of jazz virtuoso Miles Davis in general, and the creation of the album Kind of Blue in particular. That album that put modal jazz on the map and remains a standard to this day. The show itself mixes many disciplines, including the acting talents of Benjamin Akintuyos as Miles Davis themselves, the music of the album, and Phelps' musical talents on the trumpet, bringing it all to life and binding it all together. Not only that, but Phelps, who has 20 years of music and performance, takes to the stage as an actor for the first time. I caught up with Jay earlier today to talk about the impact and relevance of Kind of Blue, the influence it has had on his life, and what it's like to meet your hero on stage every night. Joining me now on the show, Jay Phelps. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
And you've discovered something incredibly unusual about Edinburgh. Sometimes you need a fan to cool down.
Yes, I'm holding it in my hand right now. A fan, which is, I think, a bit rare for Edinburgh. But funny enough, I was at the beach yesterday, so it can get to those temperatures. I thought I was in the Caribbean.
First time at the Fringe?
First time on a long run at the Fringe. I've done a one-off gig before.
Which was that?
I forget, it was about 15 years ago or so, and I was a bit younger and just kind of was shipped up and then shipped back to London.
Do you have any memories of that? Are you feeling any connection now between now and 2010?
Not much, because now I am pretty much a resident here in Edinburgh for a month, and that's a very different set of challenges, and I'm also loving it. It's also really fun, really great. It's like I'm on tour in one venue.
The show itself, a title of the show that can be interpreted in many ways until you realise what the subject is, and then it's incredibly obvious. So the title, by the way, everybody else, you can have 10 seconds of thinking about it. I can't do that because I've probably just done an introduction that says it's a biography of Miles Davis. So that's not
okay.
Listen to the podcast backwards first. The show is Miles. It's about Miles Davis. Tell us a little bit more about it, Jay.
Well, it's something that I came up with when I was on tour with Kind of Blue. I have been and still will be playing this music, this wonderful music from the album of Kind of Blue from Miles Davis. And basically, I've been touring around the country and thought, wouldn't it be nice for this to be extended in some kind of way? Maybe extended in a theatrical sort of way. And so I put pen to paper. I started kind of coming up with a few early days concepts. And then I remembered some folks who I had worked with in the theater world a few years back, which was Delirium and Lauren Reed Productions. And Delirium is run by Oliver Catterby, and Lauren Reed, she runs her own production company. And they've been to the Fringe before. I actually did a show with them called Lifeline that Oliver wrote himself. And we played that. We had only one showing of that actually in London. And so that was a really lovely piece. And it was a few years ago now. So I'm trying to like remember exactly what we did there. You know, when you do something just like once and it happens and it kind of like just ends up being something almost a flash in the pan in a way. And we were talking about it just the other day and how much he would like to bring it back. But it was a lovely piece, and hopefully that gets played itself. So that was something that introduced me to them, and I saw how they, ran the show. How he's an incredible writer, director, and I just thought to myself, let's see if they would like anything to do with this little concept here. And so my original like early sketches was something like Journey into the Blue or something along those lines. As Kind of Blue is Miles Davis's best-selling album, it's been kind of an easy sell around the country in terms of being able to get, crowds on board, people loving the album. In fact, Miles Davis himself never toured the album. Um, himself with his own bands. So it was a really good opportunity to actually play this music live and and get the responses that we've been getting. And as a result, I was able to I think it's been about five sold out shows annually at the Jazz Cafe around the country. We've been doing it. So when I sent the concept to Ollie and Lauren, I think they just sort of lapped it up right away. They really enjoyed where I was, trying to head to within my own original concepts. And then obviously I'm not a writer, I'm not a playwright or anything like that. So Ollie is, and he sort of just took it upon himself to go away and write this amazing piece. And so now we have a great show, and he's also a very physical theater director as well. So there's so much happening all the time, and this is my acting debut.
We will come to this show in a moment, but first of all,
Okay.
a little bit about A Kind of Blue itself, because if you have even the tiniest nudge into the jazz world, there are a handful of albums that you pick out, and Kind of Blue is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the staying power of that as a standard is as powerful in jazz, I would say, as pop music is with the Beatles. But can you put into context for those people who might have just like, oh, I've heard that name, how important was this album to jazz and to the wider music scene?
It's a funny one because the more and more that I've been discovering things about this album is the more and more that I actually have been noticing how niche the album is itself. Because yes, it's a beautiful statement and a beautiful piece of music. All of the songs on there are. But at the time, I would have thought that it was a little bit neat due to the fact that Kind of Blue is a modal jazz album. Modal jazz being okay, so jazz before modal jazz was based on a set of chord changes that happen to outline the song or to help distinguish where the song was moving harmonically. In modal jazz, the chords go by much slower. It takes time to get from one to the next, but they are dealing with certain scales that are within the modes of music. I don't want to get too deep on the technical side of it, but at the end of the day, the modal jazz gives the listener and gives the player the chance to really take their time within the music and take their time to express themselves without there being so many rapid changes happening. You can actually kind of settle within that particular harmonic structure or harmonic structure and be able to then develop your ideas maybe a bit more slowly, maybe rapidly, but you can develop your ideas to the point where then when you reach the next chord, it has taken so long to get to that point that your ideas um, have had time themselves to reach the point that you might want to get them to. So modal jazz is just this wonderful style of music that came about around that sort of period of time, the late 50s, and Miles really gravitated towards it. So that being said, Kinda Blue is a modal jazz album, and I feel personally that that's why we love it so much because it's very human. It has very humanistic qualities to it. It breathes very well, and also none of the songs on the album are too fast paced or um too quick for the listener to really you know really grasp what's happening. I feel that when jazz is a bit too fast and too chaotic, sometimes it's more for people who are really adapted to the style of music in terms of listeners. So modal jazz is that style of music that has a lot of breath in the music, and I feel that's why Kind of Blue was as successful as it was and still is. Um,
And for those of our listeners out there who'd like a bit of contrast, I don't know, maybe it's me, but I would take Kind of Blue on one side and then go and listen to something like Bird and Diz, which
yeah,
is your bebop side, which is
exactly.
where Miles Davis kind of came from. So you can see what he left and where he went to. And I think that kind of
Yeah.
jazz is two worlds, folks. It's quite scary, and nobody agrees if which is better, bebop or modal. So it's an eternal quest. It's like John or Paul. It's like Ringo or every single other drummer under the sun. It's like Apple and Android. It's everywhere. Okay, right now this leads me to an interesting thought. If modal jazz is all about taking time to express, and Kind of Blue is like what 45 minutes over 5 songs. You know, this is
Yeah.
these are music set. You've only got 60 minutes on the stage at the Fringe. How
Yeah.
can you be slow and luxuriate
Hmm.
and decide what to take from 45 minutes of jazz to get into a contemporary show that needs tempo and rhythm?
Yeah, well, what's interesting here is that so Kind of Blue is the focus, um, but there are other bits of music that are played throughout as well. So we seem to pivot between the songs, the I'll call them the themes of Kind of Blue, and improvised music, which I'm playing. So I am improvising some of the soundtrack. So there are times when our Miles character is going through certain things, and I am improvising with either a metronome that's playing or an underlying drum groove that's happening. That's actually out of context to the album itself. But what we've done um, um, musically there is that we've kind of drawn upon a few other Miles songs or things that he would have played. So, Sur l'Autoroute, which is part of what he recorded in Paris when he improvised there for a film. Miles actually improvised music on a film, and one of those tracks there, which is based on a it's gonna come to me and I'll it's based on Sweet Georgia Brown, one of the songs there. So the harmony behind it is the harmony and the harmonic movement of Sweet Georgia Brown. So I'm improvising kind of based on Sweet Georgia Brown, but you might not know if unless you know. So there's a few of those kind of little bits in there. I sing a little bit of Springsville, which is from Miles Ahead. Um, there's just a little bit of improv. Miles asks me to kind of come up with my own piece that's based on an Arabic scale. So there's lots of Miles's influences as well musically that are within the piece. So yes, within 60 minutes, we do get to touch on the themes of Kinda Blue, which kind of almost structure out some of the scenes in a way. And then I'm improvising throughout as well.
I think I find it interesting in there that you said Miles asks me, because there's always a question of how do you frame a show like this, and you've taken an approach that kind of it takes that cliche of meet your heroes, but I'm with a character called Jay Phelps, meaning a character called Miles Davis on stage.
Yeah.
How blurred is that line between you, Jay, and character Jay?
Well, character Jay does ask a few stupid questions that I think I think real Jay might not ask, but to make a show and to get to the point that we're trying to get the audience to understand within Miles's character and within just the scene itself, we've allowed for Jay to be a little bit how can I put it? Maybe a little bit younger than I am because actually Jay in the piece is 32 and I wish I was 32 still, but I'm not. But I'm not. So I feel like Jay in Miles is just a little bit greener than I am personally.
What came first? Oh, the love of Kind of Blue is always there. As I said, there most people who know jazz have some affinity with that.
Mm-hmm.
Were you really invested in Miles as a person before taking on this show? I mean, was it the music that came first or what you knew of Miles that came first?
I mean, for me, it was always the music because I gravitated towards Miles as a child. We had the album Kind of Blue in the house. That was one of the only albums. I keep saying this. My mom's like, we had more than three, but the three that I remember that we had in the house was Kind of Blue, Glenn Miller Greatest Hits, and some Herb Alpert, I think, Greatest Hits of some kind. And I really gravitated towards the Miles, and that was from about the age of 11 years old or something. And so it was the sound of the music that first got me, and then obviously when we start learning about the stories within jazz and the people behind the music, then obviously you get more into that, and as an adult you can pick up on things, and when you start reading the Miles Davis autobiography and things like this, you then understand who the man is a little bit more behind it. But first and foremost, as a trumpet player, especially as a young trumpet player, his tone, his sound, the air behind his sound is just it's so different to anyone else. And so his personal approach to the instrument is first and foremost what brought me and what made me gravitate towards Miles Davis. But then hey, he's a man in the world, and he's also a man in a world at a time that was quite difficult for someone like him, a black man, to just get on in life. So whether you come from this or whether you come from that, you're still kind of pooled in this, put in the same pool as everyone else in a way. And so to hear and see how he um kind of rose like a phoenix through the ashes of what would have been sort of America in the 50s and 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s, then, you know, just sort of proves the point of how strong of a character he was and the type of person and resilient type of person he was to be able to get through all that and make the music that he did.
You've got influences growing up like Miles Davis, like Glenn Miller, like Herb Alpert, and bless my grandparents as well. One of the few albums they had that I can remember is the Tijuana Sound of the Living Brass. Thanks, Herb.
There you
There's a lot of
go.
brass, there's a lot of trumpets in there, which makes it obvious. But with Miles's life, did
Yeah,
that change how you approach your music?
his life is so different to my life, that I don't really have so much connection with exactly how he conducted his life. What I do know, and do know that a lot of musicians take from him and his music, is the fact that he was never satisfied. So that is one thing, and I guess that has to do with his life in some kind of way. You know, he used to say that he never used to like being around people who were too comfortable and too comfortable within themselves. It made him feel a bit awkward. And so I guess like just understanding the man behind the music makes you understand the music a little bit more. The You can't have one without the other, and that's kind of what we have touched upon within the play. We could easily sort of sugarcoat this thing, but that's not what it is. That's not who he was. You have to have the good, the bad, the ugly, and all in between to really grasp how and why this music came about. This isn't, especially the music that Miles made, this isn't like jazz hands kind of music now. This is very serious stuff, and he was a very serious individual who had a concept or many, many concepts. And so his approach and his concepts to music is what myself and a lot of people kind of love of him, and I feel that that sort of approach from 59 onwards is still what people how people approach jazz music today in a way. You know what I mean? It's never old. It's constantly new, and that's why we love it. That's why there's still kids playing jazz. That's why you'll see 14-year-old kids still trying to learn jazz music because it's constantly new. It's this art form that straddles science and mathematics at the same time.
Young and old, all following jazz. What
Mm.
sort of audience are you getting then? Are you getting, audiences that have no idea of the story? What sort of blend do you think are being drawn into the show?
I think it's a combination of folks who are um, well versed in Miles, folks who are well versed in music, or folks who are well versed in theater who want to take a chance on a Miles story. I've been going around town, seeing you see the various posters of various things. I've seen Ella Fitzgerald show. I met the guy actually the other day who did the Bob Marley show and whatnot. And there's like a few different shows that have a famous person as the reference point. And I think ours might be, just from what I've heard, slightly different just because we're not doing a verbatim kind of I'm just there up on the stage playing the songs and telling you about the songs or the life behind the music and stuff. We have a story that we're bringing to this. And this story is kind of a timeless story that I feel straddles the relationship that almost like Wynton Marsalis had with Miles, or that other trumpet players had with Miles as well, because like knowing, because I actually know Wynton Marsalis quite well, and he's a hero of mine from when I was a kid. In fact, he texted me just the other day, "Hey, I'm in Scotland. I heard that you're here," kind of thing. I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Um, but get back in touch with me, Wynton. Yeah, I texted you twice now. Anyway, But yeah, so like I feel this relationship that Miles has had with other musicians, it is within this story. Like Oliver, who wrote the script, he dove deep into the autobiography and different biographies as well, about Kind of Blue and about Miles, and really understood kind of a lot of these varying points that kind of were the I guess catalysts towards how this was made and how this came about. And so I feel that there is so much within this one story that encapsulates everything else that's kind of was it within Miles's life.
You yourself, working musician, not an actor.
Hmm.
What are you going to take from the show Miles into your career? Because you're not going to do this forever. There's more music coming from Jay later on this year. But how is Miles fed into that?
Well, I've learned over 40 pages of text. I studied my ass off to get to this point. And you know what? At the end of the day, the sky's the limit here for, well, for Jay the actor, to be honest. Who knows what may happen there? I mean, we've been talking about the future of the show as well. It's been great that we've had like many sold out shows now. And so we're thrilled with that. So we have been talking about the future, and obviously the future includes me. And it's funny because now that I talk to certain people, some have helped us with the show along the way, and here's me saying, putting myself down sometimes, thinking, well, you guys are actors, and I'm just this, and everyone's like, no, 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 you're an actor now, and trying to give me that confidence. And so at the end of the day, I kind of feel it now. We've had 2 weeks of a run here in Edinburgh so far, and I feel that actor spirit, and I feel like the role because I'm within the play. I'm playing, I think, five different characters. I play myself, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, Miles's dad. Um, I do some puppetry for a baby. I do some puppetry with dresses. It's all over the shop. And so at the end of the day, I feel like the almost the confidence that it gives you to be on stage, to speak to people, and to perform in that kind of way is so different to being a musician with the horn on my face and kind of that separation there. Um, that it it's funny because I did a gig in between the time that we had our rehearsal run, and I kind of noticed how different we are as musicians in compared to the acting world. Not to say that we're more slack, because yes, we do practice in our own time and stuff like this by ourselves, but I would say it's more regimented in a very positive way within the theater world. And then when we're on stage as musicians, maybe we're just a little bit sometimes more slack in terms of when the next song is coming in, or when the next beat is coming in, and everyone's sort of still looking around, whereas in the theater world you just have to be on it. The show is what the show is. And so maybe some of those things I will take to my performances in the future, and things like that, but definitely want to see what the future may hold as an actor as well.
Outside of the show, what's next for you?
I have new music coming out myself. The second uh, edition of my kind of series called Broken Standards. This will be out at the end of September, early October. We're trying to find a date there. I've already released two singles, one of which is Herb Alpert's Rise, and the other is I Get a Kick Out of You by Cole Porter. And so the whole premise of Broken Standards is to almost bring old jazz standards or old thematical anthems, actually, like we have with Rise, and bring them to a new point here, a new point almost where you could hear them on the radio today. And that was the point of Broken Standards. A bit of a double entendre as well with the name, considering the fact that we're in the times that we're in today. So, Broken Standards 2 is my latest edition. Very, very pleased by how it's come about. And yeah, hoping for everyone just to listen to it and enjoy it in the same kind of way as I have been making it.
And there's already a couple of single releases out there on the usual sources. I'm going to point to Bandcamp. Other streaming services are available, but I suspect Bandcamp gives you just a little bit more than 0.003 cents.
Yeah, that would help.
Jay, also giving a little bit more than 0.003. The show itself, tell us when it's on.
So the show is 6 p.m. every day at Summer Hall, and get your tickets quick because they're actually selling out. So we'll be there. It's an hour-long show. It features Benji Akintuyos, who plays Miles. He's incredible. So if you want to, so if you've never seen Miles in person, this is your chance, because Benji's literally bringing Miles to life. And in fact, every time I'm on the stage with him, there's a couple times within the play, I take a look at him and I'm just like thinking to myself, am I really here with Miles? Because it just feels so, he plays the character so, to such a T that it almost feels like I'm in the room with Miles Davis. And so, you know, if you want to see that, and that connection between him and I, come see the play.
There's going to be something in there about getting into the mode of the theatre, spending time exploring, and if you're spending an hour with Miles, then you're spending an hour with Miles and with yourself. Jay, not got the full hour here, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Keep trumpeting. Good luck with the release later on, and good luck with the rest of the run.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Jay Phelps there, talking about his show Miles. It's playing at Summer Hall, 6 p.m. right through until the end of the Fringe. As always, links direct into the Edfringe box office are back at our website, edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com, and we'll have a direct link into Jay's Instagram as well. I am Jay Phelps, if you're just looking for the direct typing in. As always, your links, your likes, your loves, your shares, subscribes, and everything else that social media content likes to ask you for, I would like to ask you for that as well. If you're listening to us in one of the podcast apps and you can leave us a star rating or a little review, pop that down just below where the player is. That really, really helps us. And yep, slight slip, but if you are looking for reading, we have partnered up with Lothian Life magazine this year, lothianlife.co.uk, where you'll be able to read more reviews and more thoughts, more shows, more engagement across the entire breadth of the Fringe. And with that, I hope in this heat I can get a little bit of sleep, but if not, it doesn't matter. There's more shows to find, and it is a city right now that, if you love your arts, still never sleeps. Ta-ra for now. Been listening to the Edinburgh Fringe Show, hosted by Ewan Spence, produced by the Podcast Corner for Spence Media and Radio 6 International. Listen to more from the Fringe at edinburghfringe.thepodcastcorner.com.